with more Super Bowl titles, 7 than any other franchise. And Roger Goodell, looking back on Brady's career, coming out with the following quote: Tom Brady will be remembered as one of the greatest to ever play in the NFL, an incredible competitor and leader. His stellar career is remarkable for its longevity, but also for the sustained excellence he displayed. More to come from Goodell. He said his record 5 Super Bowl MVP awards and 7 Super Bowl championships set a standard that players will chase for years. Let's welcome in our Brinson and John Breech. And Breech, you just actually posted something interesting on social media saying it's funny that Tom came out and announced this retirement on Instagram, a platform that didn't even exist when Brady started in the NFL. When you look at his career from start to finish, what sticks out the most to you?
Well, real quick, Jenny, on the Roger Goodell statement, I'm surprised he gave him credit for 7 Super Bowls because who suspended him 4 games for Deflategate?
Oh,
Roger
boy.
Goodell, maybe 6 with an asterisk there. I'm sure that Tom Brady is going to print out that statement and burn it because I don't think he cares about what Roger Goodell thinks. There is just so much that sticks out. We saw a graphic earlier that kind of said you can put Tom Brady's career, you can separate it into 3 separate categories. They're all Hall of Fame careers, and it blows my mind. I think I was a freshman in college or a senior in high school when his career started. And any NFL fan who is under the age of 40, Tom Brady is literally all you've known. He's just been around forever. And you look at how his career developed. He started in 2001. He was basically a game manager who was thrown in there, leading the biggest upset in Super Bowl history, one of the 2 biggest upsets. And then you just saw him slowly develop into the killer instinct quarterback that he became, where he went from game manager, where he became the guy who was the reason his teams were winning, as we saw later in his career. He pretty much willed the Buccaneers to a Super Bowl win last season. So it is just nothing short of remarkable that anyone can last more than 2 decades in the NFL, let alone at the game's most difficult position. But I will say, I'm sure Tom Brady's happy to get this out of the way so that he can sit down tonight, have a greasy hamburger, a giant piece of pizza, and a beer, and not have to worry about keeping to his strict TB12 diet regimen.
No way, man. You think his kids are celebrating with anything other than some mung beans tonight? They're like, oh my God, we finally get to try pizza. Sorry, kids, here's some salmon. Look, Tom Brady, February 1st, 2004, Tom Brady wins his 2nd Super Bowl. And then 7 years ago, on February 1st, Tom Brady takes down the Seattle Seahawks, and ends the Legion of Boom in that wild Super Bowl with the Marshawn ending and the Malcolm Butler pick. Maybe a coincidence that he decided to choose February 1. I would probably guess not. I would think that this day probably holds a pretty significant meaning to him. And I would think also that he probably wanted to announce this without the news leaking out. Jason La Canfora, by the way, shout out to JLC, was on it before anybody else, nailed this last Friday, and actually called really the timing of it, saying that Brady would retire, but wanted to wait until after the conference championship games. And Brady did just that. He probably would have retired maybe he retires on Monday, but eventually decided to do it on February 1st. I mean, we talked about this all on Saturday. Tom Brady is the greatest of all time. It's not remotely close as to who might even be number 2. You can look at the Super Bowls, you can look at the passing yards, you can look at the Super Bowl MVPs, you can look at the regular season records, the postseason records. They're all, particularly the postseason ones, put him in such, just completely different company than anybody else in the history of professional football. And it's really hard to imagine anybody will ever be able to duplicate it. I mean, just look at Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. We're always trying to find the next dynasty. Well, I mean, they hosted 4 AFC championship games and, quote unquote, only got 1 Super Bowl, right? I mean, it is hard to win titles, and Tom Brady has won more than anyone else probably ever will in the history of football.
I just had to look up what a mung bean was, so thank you for that, Will Brinson. Maybe I'll try one of those when I get home. All right, but looking at his retirement post in general, I know a lot of fans in New England are curious why there is no mention of the Patriots in that post. Yes, we know he thanked the Patriots after his career in New England before he went to Tampa Bay, but it is a bit surprising. Would you agree? Will, we'll start with you.
I mean, I guess Patriots fans probably should get over themselves here. Tom Brady didn't retire from the Patriots. He retired from the Buccaneers. Okay. I mean, when he left New England, there was a whole big love fest for the Patriots and for the Patriots fans, even though he still felt at that time that he had plenty of football left in him, and he was proven correct. I mean, look, he only played in Tampa for 2 seasons, but he brought a Super Bowl to Tampa. And, he was, deeply involved in that community, in that building, even in that short time. So I think it's a little unfair to the people involved with the Buccaneers who gave him this second chance, granted this opportunity to come win a Super Bowl with a different organization, that he would make it all about the Patriots. I mean, we're going to spend hours and hours and hours talking about Tom Brady over the next, week or whatever it is, before we really, it's just going to be a thing because he's the GOAT. So there's plenty of time for reflection about his time with the Patriots without having to make it all about New England when he is not retiring from New England.
And hey, look, if you divorce your spouse of 20 years and something big happens in your life 3 years after that, are you going to be thanking him? I don't know. But this is a little bit different. Brady obviously won 6 Super Bowls in New England, had such a stellar career there. I mean, I am sure that Julian Edelman, all these old teammates he had are probably reading through that statement with a fine-tooth comb there, all 1,500 words of it saying, yeah, Tom didn't mention me, didn't mention the Patriots, didn't mention Boston, didn't even mention the Kraft family. Did he forget? Did that part of his statement somehow get left off of Instagram? It is a little peculiar. I think my only theory would be that maybe Brady and the Patriots have something planned, maybe those one-day contract ceremonies where Brady returns to New England, and that's something that could be announced later this week, because if that is not being lined up right now, it absolutely blows my mind that Brady would purposely omit the franchise that he won 6 Super Bowls with. So this is definitely an interesting situation. And if he doesn't have anything planned with New England as far as retirement goes, then this is just a scorched earth tour and Tom Brady wins, and this is his revenge for them letting him walk after the 2019 season.
I'm getting a lot of messages from New England Patriots fans that do think that is a big deal. So we'll see what the plans are moving forward. And maybe it's a Brinson thing where it's just like, hey, you're done over there. You retired as a Buccaneer, and that's that.
I would just add that, like, okay, if Tom Brady thanks Patriots fans in the Patriots organization, but doesn't thank Bill Belichick specifically, we're like, oh, he won't thank Belichick. And then if he thanks Belichick, but doesn't thank, like, Julian Edelman or Wes, I mean, if he has to go back and thank everybody from his time with the Patriots, it takes away from the Buccaneers. And I'm pretty sure Breech would know better because he's the on the IG more, but, like, you don't have room for all those people on this freaking thank you note.
It's a long post. All right, just looking ahead, though. So after you call your career done, you have 5 years before you can think about joining the Hall of Fame. So that brings us to the 2027 class. In that would be Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger. It's obviously not a matter of if he will be a Hall of Famer, but when. How do you think that one plays out?
Well, I think Tom Brady will get in the Hall of Fame in 5 years. That's my bold prediction for the show. Actually, my real bold prediction is that I think there's a chance, and I said this either on the podcast or in Slack, and it made Ryan Wilson really, really mad. And I think that he's firing up to maybe talk to you in a minute, and I'm sure he'll yell at me when he does. But I think there's a chance that this could push Ben Roethlisberger to a second ballot, and not because Big Ben is undeserving of being the first ballot Hall of Famer. But if you go read Peter King's Pro Football Talking America column, and he wrote about it. He said he doesn't think, as somebody who's done a lot, who's been on that committee voting for like 3 decades, he doesn't think that there's a distinction between first and second ballot Hall of Famers, however much we may talk about it. And I do believe that the committee will look at this and consider the idea that putting Big Ben in on the same ballot as Tom Brady is not only takes away from Tom Brady, but certainly overshadows Ben Roethlisberger. So I think it's possible, and I'm not saying it definitely happens, just think it's possible that they maybe kick the Ben can down the road 1 year. It depends on what the class is too and who's left. But we've seen them. I felt like they did that with Kurt Warner and Brett Favre, where they didn't want to add Warner onto the class with Favre because it takes away from that position in particular. So just something to keep an eye on for that class.
Yeah, Ben Roethlisberger's probably calling his agent right now saying, you know what, how about I unretire, play 1 more year, because I don't want to be in the same voting class as Tom Brady, because Tom Brady's a lock to get in the Hall of Fame. Tom Brady, we can plan it right now. His Hall of Fame ceremony is going to be 5 years from now. I think it would be cool if the Pro Football Hall of Fame did something where Tom Brady was the only member of the class that year. Because do you want to be a part of Tom Brady's class? Because you're going to be overshadowed. Whether Roethlisberger goes in with him or the next year, anyone who goes in with Tom Brady, that is only going to be remembered as Tom Brady's class. Maybe you throw Gronk in there because if he retires after this season, he'll also be eligible, and Brady and Gronk would probably love to go in together. Gronk will be, with the kegger in Canton. But besides that, it's Tom Brady, and that's it. That's the guy you put in the Hall of Fame in 2027. Nothing else matters. And then, Ben Roethlisberger, whether he's first or second ballot, he might be happy to go in 1 year later so that he doesn't get overshadowed by Brady. But absolutely, we'll be talking on HQ 5 years from now as we celebrate Brady's career again when he is inducted in the Hall of Fame.
We have plenty more Brady talk to come. Fellas, thanks for joining us here on CBS Sports HQ. As Tom Brady calling it a career after 22 seasons in the NFL, he is officially retiring, and many people taking to social media, giving their opinions on what's going on with Brady and how the announcement has gone down. And that also includes the Tampa Bay Buccaneers saying memories to last a lifetime. Thank you, 12. #Go Bucs.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.